I'm live. My first live. I've never done this before and I didn't schedule it. I figured I was just going to jump in and see what happens. That's kind of my style. Although I've been on some live stuff before and I've certainly performed live and obviously make videos all the time. This is the first time I'll have any kind of audience. Maybe we'll see people. Maybe I'll talk. Maybe I won't. Sorry, bear with me. The hydraulics on my chair here are failing. So what I was talking about to myself, what's up, Bruce? It's Wumstead in the house. The title of this is New Beekeeper Advice from New Beekeeper. And I'm a newer beekeeper. This is will be my third season. And I know I watch a bunch of guys that are all, years and years deep, and some newer beekeepers as well, and homesteaders and farmers, and all great resources of information. But I was thinking of, I'm selling nukes this year. Sold a couple last year. This year I put a concerted effort into selling nukes. So I got, as of right now, 13 reserved. I was shooting for 30, but if I get to 20, I'll be happy. If I get to 30, I'll be happier. But in doing that, I was thinking back, and it's even something I thought about my first year is, what do you want to do with your bees? How do you want to keep your bees? What are your plans as a beekeeper? A lot of the questions I get seem to me that people don't ask that question of themselves. They ask about, treatments. Of course, they're always asking about treatments, what to do, when to do it, how to do it, but they don't really have a plan. They don't have any goals. Whether it's one hive to pull 20 pounds of honey off of, or it's 300 hives to sell nukes and honey and wax and everything else, there's no plan. And I think that leaves people like really at a loss. And it seems to me it adds a lot of stress, a lot of negative feelings, a lot of disappointment. It shouldn't be disappointing or upsetting. It should be nothing but fun, in my opinion. And I have a blast doing this. I'm so thrilled that I got involved and started doing it because, man, I wish I would have learned. I could have been able to do this 10 years ago. But here I am. So for me, new beekeeper advice, have that plan. Make sure that you have more than enough equipment on hand. You're always going to need extra boxes, extra frames, no matter what. Keep that stuff handy. Your tools, obviously, smoker, if you use one, and hive tool, obviously, is something you're going to definitely need. But what do you guys think? You guys have any ideas for a new beekeeper? Some basic things. I always go back to that plan. I mean, I work in construction, so for me, the job doesn't work if you don't have a plan. You don't have a game plan every day. You don't have a good, successful job. And for me, beekeeping is the same thing. Any of your hobbies, any of those kind of things are the same. They're things that require effort and work and a plan. Some kind of game plan. Too many people fail because they just haven't thought about it. They haven't thought about simple things like, what am I going to do if my hive swarms, or what am I going to do if I run out of equipment? Really gotta take those things into consideration. And I'm worried too that a lot of people get locked into these 2 million subscriber beekeepers that are amazing sources of information, and they have tons and tons of great practical knowledge, but they keep 1,000 hives. Most people don't keep 1,000 hives, or they produce 10,000 nukes a year. So their approach is a whole lot different from your approach as a new beekeeper. If you're just looking to get honey, my buddy Bruce at Swarmstead just said, "When in doubt, wait to do something." That's pretty good advice. I think that comes with a certain degree of knowledge, though. You have to be very aware of what's going on with your bees. To feel comfortable, waiting and seeing. I agree, but I think you have to be aware of what's going on with your bees. So paying attention to them, watching them regularly, making sure that what's going on is huge. It's huge. I know right now I lost a couple more in the beginning of the spring. I think I'm just over 40. I think I'm at like 42 from 60, which I'm thrilled about. For those of you that don't know, I don't treat. I actually had an interesting story about treatment-free versus treatment recently on a bee chat that I've only ever done one, and I'll probably never do it again past these live streams that our fellow beekeepers that I follow do. Basically, they basically think that treatment-free is a ticking time bomb, and I just don't understand it. I just don't understand it. It works just the same as treating your bees. I got a whole roof full of bees as proof. I know Swarmstead Bruce, he's got a whole yard full of bees that are proof. And there's plenty of other people out there that have plenty of proof that you don't need to treat the bees for mites, and they can do just fine. And that's probably the best thing for them. I even had the guy I'm talking about, even had him admit to that to my face last year at one of my inspections. And this year he basically put forth the proposition that bees that can survive on their own, that don't require treatments, that live and survive and thrive, are not as good as bees that are treated. And I just don't understand. But he works for the state, and they have a set of best practices, and he's got a job. Whether or not those are best practices or not, I don't think so. Maybe they are because someone decided that they should be. It sounds like a government 101 to me, creating a problem where there isn't necessarily one and then trying to fix it. But he put forth this proposition that if he brought a treatment-free nuke into the yard that was full of treated bees, that was basically like a nuclear bomb just waiting to destroy and kill all his bees. And it was kind of funny that like, okay, so you got bees that are needing help in order to survive, but they're the problem. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. I'm sure some of you do. Some of you might treat and might swear by treatments, and to each their own. I just don't believe that that's the case. And what really bothered me about it is the way he put forth the argument. It came off as, I took it personal because I don't know of any other treatment-free beekeepers here in Philadelphia. Now, when I say I'm treatment-free, I don't put any presupposition on that. It doesn't mean my bees are resistant to mites. Doesn't mean they're resistant to disease. Doesn't mean that they're going to live over winter. It doesn't mean that they're going to live through summer. All it means is I don't treat them with oxalic acid or Apivar or strips or any of that other stuff. That's all it means. But he put on that presupposition, that claim that these bees are something that they're not. Or I'm claiming that they're something that they're not. I never make that claim because it's not a claim I can make. But they can make the claim that the best practices of treatments are somehow better. And that bothers me. It bothers me. I never made such a claim. And to, chastise me for doing the same thing that you're doing when I'm not doing it really kind of pisses me off. So I don't know if any of you guys I know if you guys are treatment free that you've run into opposition. I know you have, because you always do. And more numbers that show up in research, they're so close that it's like, are you really doing the best practices for the bees? Are you really doing best practices? And then it was, oh, well, you just split them up all the time and give them brood breaks, so you never let the mites get out of control. Well, one of my colonies last year that he tested, and Swarm said Bruce was here to see it, it was, well above the threshold of mites. There was 4 on a pallet. He tested all 4. That one was highest. It was over 30%. I think it was well over 30%. I think it was like 50 mites per 300 bees, per the sample, whatever it was. I meant to ask you, Bruce, about that video. I can't remember where you posted that because I wanted to see it again. But that's the only colony that survived on that pallet. It was the one with the highest mite load out of 4 colonies. The other 3, they were all exactly the same. 5 frame deep, 5 frame medium, 10 frames total. All went in with basically the same amount of storage. All went in with basically the same amount of bees. One had 50, almost, I think it was 50 mites per 300. I could be wrong. It could have been a little bit less than that, but well above threshold for treatment. And they're the ones that survived. Now, that's a statement of fact. I'm not presuming that those bees are anything more than bees that live through winter with the highest mite load that was tested in my bee yard. But they're the problem. They're the problem bees. Got a little off topic. We were talking about new beekeepers and new beekeeping, but I think this is a good time too to recommend to new beekeepers that they not get locked into the focus of treatments religiously, like so many people do. If you want to choose to treat your bees, that's on you. You can buy bees from me and treat them all you want. I don't care. Keep your bees how you want to keep them. In my experience, and I'm seeing, other people, plenty of people do treatment-free beekeeping and see the same kind of numbers happen. So for me, it's something I think you should be real careful getting too locked into and too overwhelmed by, because it's a whole other process. I mean, to do an oxalic acid treatment, well, first you need a vaporizer. And if you're going to purchase one, you can purchase one or maybe borrow one. You need the oxalic acid. You need rubber gloves. You need respirator. You need safety goggles. I think now they just changed the rules where you can leave your honey supers, but up till now you had to take all your honey supers off. That sounds like a process, and it's an expense. That's another expense. So, to me, it's not something I think you should even think about your first year or 2, maybe even 3, and make a decision as to whether or not you feel treatment is the best option. But I suggest that you look at both sides of that argument, because there's some great arguments on both sides. Most of the arguments for treatment I feel fall more along the lines of other types of livestock. Pennsylvania bees are considered livestock, and I think they are in a lot of places, but best practices for cows and pigs is not the same as best practices for insects. It's not the same. It's not the same thing at all. Not even close. And insects are pretty good at figuring stuff out and surviving. For those of you that don't know, this is the cicada year, brood X that's coming out. It's the massive, massive brood that's going to hatch out. I mean, this is an insect that for, you know, I don't even know how long it's been emerging every 17 years out of the ground in mass. Uh, and honeybees are doing just fine. Plenty of them out there. I just was up looking at a bee tree the other day, one that I found last year, and bees are buzzing in there. Curious how they get their treatments all the way up there and their best practices. So to me, the best practices are what the bees do, right? You're right. There's a couple great points. Treatment, there is no end game with treatment. Treating is a business. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I know several people are in this area who offer that service. And more power to them. It's none of my business what you do, how you earn a living. As long as it's not hurting anybody, not taking anybody else's stuff, it's none of my business. But it is most certainly a business. Chad, we got treatment free here, 20 strong hives, 2 losses over 3 years, and then we're due to predators. I found it the same as splits as management, considering the losses treated hives experience. Well, super's wrong, where I think that's going to be a selling point for us non-traders that we didn't coat their honey with a chemical. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that was one thing that I got a lot of interest in last year when I did my first year of honey sales was, I don't use any chemical treatments. I don't use any, I do very, very, very little feeding of sugar. I haven't had to yet. Unfortunately, in this area in Philadelphia, I get an amazing honey crop. Seriously, I probably could have pulled 500 or 600 pounds of spring honey. I didn't. I pulled maybe 100. I think I pulled like 150 pounds. And I pulled probably, I think I pulled 300 pounds of fall honey. And they all still went into winter with at least a 5-frame medium full of honey, plus their 5-frame deep that they packed, they backfilled in. I overwinter in 5, and almost all my bees are in nukes, 5/5. I start out with 5 deeps, 5 deeps over 5 mediums, and from there I add honey supers as I need to those colonies. This year, I think I'm going to manage a little bit differently than what I did last year. I make all my own boxes, so I have a boatload of 5-frame medium supers. Now, like I said, I'm on a rooftop, and to get my honey up and down, I had to build a dumbwaiter, an electric hoist dumbwaiter, to drop the honey down from the roof, because there's no way I could do it by hand unless I was doing one super at a time, and there's no way I was doing that. Carrying stuff up and down a ladder is no fun, especially 40, 50 pounds at a time. So, for me, that smaller colony size is just more manageable for weight, for size. Everything's just more manageable for me in that scenario. Because I can just pull honey supers off, put new ones on, stack them on the elevator, bring them down, get them extracted, and get them back out very reasonably easily. Now, this year, I'm also having my son help me, who's 15, and he's a strong kid, but lifting deep supers, 10-frame deep supers full of honey is no picnic for me, and I need him to be able to help. So my space, again, is tailored to my needs. What I do doesn't necessarily work for everybody, but it works great for me. So, those kind of practices, again, something for a new beekeeper to keep in mind is to see that you're doing what works best for you. and that might be not what everybody else is doing. That's okay. That's sometimes more fun because you're going to find out things that they won't. You're going to see things that they don't. Your practices are going to be much more tailored to your scenario, and it's going to be more fun, less stress, easier management, all that stuff. I try to think of this as practically as possible, and to me that makes it just more fun. Again, I try to go in with a plan and let that work for me. If I have to change, I change plans, but at least I start with some kind of outline. And once you do that, you'll get greater success for sure. For sure. How about you guys? Anybody else got any suggestions for new beekeepers I'll throw out there? Hive tools. Have a couple extra hive tools. I've lost a couple. I do cutout work and I collect swarms and that kind of stuff. And I've misplaced a few over the years. So now I got about 6, I think, laying around. And I think that's going to be enough. hopefully that's enough. I've managed to keep the one I've been using steady, but I got the other ones on hand. Bottling's another issue. Yeah. Next time, Bruce. Bottling was something that I did this year for the first time. I just used a honey bucket. At the beginning of the season, I went and bought a 20 frame extractor. For me, again, I was looking to go into a more commercial, sell more honey, sell more bees scenario. So, I just dropped the hammer and bought a 20 frame extractor. Bought it used, but basically new. That was an investment. That was like a $1,400 investment. But, between honey sales and my cutout work, here's another thing in my scenario that I'm really kind of fortunate is I do cutout work. I'm in construction over 20 years. I do cutout work. I sell honey. So all this stuff finances my beekeeping. I haven't put anything out of pocket since my first year. And I've made that money back. Not everybody can do that. Not everybody can make it, a profitable venture. But for me, even a hobby beekeeper, you can pull enough honey to pay for everything that you've spent. You absolutely can. Even with a single hive, you could definitely recoup your costs, and should, in my opinion, because it can get outrageous real quick. Southie 603. No, I've done some honeycomb sales, but not much. It's just for me, it's a whole nother process. It's messy. I know, you can make it neat. You can do it neater. I just haven't gone that direction. Bottling for me is the easiest thing. Now, that being said, when I do cutout work or I do have some foundationless honey supers that I'll give comb honey away to friends and family, but I haven't gotten into doing any sales on that yet. Because again, it's another setup. Like, you got to have a plan for that. And I'm not planned for that. I just went with foundation in my supers to make them easy to draw. I'm going to do 4 and 5 or 7 and 8 or 9 and 10, space out my honey supers this year, get my frames deeper, get them to draw deeper to make uncapping easier and all that kind of stuff. Because last year I had a little, I did a great job with honey, but having those deeper cells, I think, is going to make my life a little bit easier. But doing comb honey is not is not something I'm really into at the moment. I did happen to sell quite a bit of comb honey last year to two people who basically bought buckets of my cutout honey, um, in bulk, which was fine by me. I mean, if anything, I was just going to feed it back to the bees, but I did a lot of cutouts and I got a lot of cutout honey. So I'm able to use that to give back to the bees. I try to give them back only honey if I can. Um, I did when I clean my extractor, I'll use that water. I don't use any detergents or anything in it, just hot water. And I've fed that honey water back to the bees, and they seem to take that up no problem. So I'm always, trying to keep the bees as natural as possible, not give them the treatments, not give them the sugar. And it made a huge impact on my honey sales last year, getting back to that. Um, what Chad Boone had relayed. It is a good selling point, especially these days without people. We got enough poison in the world. I'm sure we all know. Uh, we don't need any more, and I certainly don't want it in my bees, and I don't want it in my honey. Um, do what we can do. Rooftop. Hey, Timothy Mitchell, how are you? Thank you, appreciate it. Yeah, I've always had a knack for building and a little bit of creativity. I do sculpture work and carvings and that kind of things, and have built props, stage props. So I added that to my beekeeping. Of course, if you've seen my custom hives with the road barrel and some of the other custom hives I've made, it's just fun. That stuff's a blast. Not at all practical, just fun. Um, I live in Philadelphia. What uh, got me started on the rooftop? Well, technically, I didn't get started on the rooftop. Out back of my shop, the shop I'm in used to be a smelting warehouse. They would melt down circuit boards and metals for recycling. So there's all kind of high voltage wires and boxes all over the place. All the equipment's gone, but some of the remnants are left. And out back of my shop, in some of my videos, you'll see there's a shipping container, and I had removed a deck for a friend of mine that was about 10 by 12. And I built that deck up on top of that shipping container and started there. So it was semi rooftop on top of the shipping container, but um, there's only limited amount of space there. I ended up doubling that size, and now it's 20 by 12. Um, and I do most of my queen rearing on that deck. It's surrounded on three sides by a vinyl fence. It's protected from the wind. It gets sun like 80% of the day, all year long. So I use that for my queen rearing. Two frame mini nukes, I like using those, or the two frame deep nukes, um, and also five frames on that deck. The reason I went to the roof is because, as I said earlier, my intention was to become a commercial beekeeper. Uh, to to put it, I guess the most selfish and egotistical way is I wanted to be the best treatment-free beekeeper supplier in Philadelphia and the area. That was my intention. Um, and I'm working my way towards it, I hope. So moving to the roof was really just a matter of I needed more space, and I had it. It's 2,500 square foot. As of right now, there's, 40, there's room for probably, I could probably push it to 100 boxes up there, but I don't think I ever want to get that much up there. I'll probably stay close to where I'm at, 60 to 70 on the rooftop. I feel like that's comfortable, to where the bees have enough space. They don't get too much in the way of drifting. Um, and I'm able to manage that. Much more than 100 for one person is difficult with a full-time job and children and family and those kind of things. It's difficult. It can be difficult to have one with all those things. If you got a couple of kids and they're good at sports, you don't have time for nothing. But for me, my son's older and he lives with me part time, so I have the availability. Um, yeah, Bruce, you can share it to the group if you want. So the rooftop was just practicality, space, full sun. Um, I had some concerns, and people had concerns with heat. I haven't had any issues with them really being overheated. If they do, they beard out and they're fine, but not too much. Probably my biggest concern is wind. Where my shop is, I'm right next to the train tracks, and it's pretty open. I'm one of the taller buildings in the area that I'm in, and I get a lot of wind. Um, so 5 to 10 miles an hour is very comfortable up there in the summertime when I'm working on the hives. But when you get into the 15 to 20s, it's a lot of wind up there. Now there's a parapet wall that helps the bees get out of the hives and up and over. And again, they live in the wild. They live in trees. They're used to the wind. So I don't think too much about it. But it does make inspections a little tricky sometimes. Uh, so I do deal with that um, pretty regularly. Although it's manageable. It's manageable. I just work off the side of the the boxes and try to get in, get out, and get my business done and leave the bees be. I was just talking the other day about brood management, and I really try to stay out of my brood chamber. You know, having 60 colonies last year, I probably did a full inspection, meaning looking through every single box, maybe 3 times in the spring, maybe midsummer, and then once over in the fall when I kind of equalized everybody down to the same boxes, same size, everything. Um, the other issue on the roof was managing getting things up and down. The only way to my roof is just a barrel ladder out on the back of the building. So I built a dumbwaiter, an electric hoist dumbwaiter that carries all my equipment and supplies and honey and bees and all that stuff to the roof when I need to get up there. It can carry me, but it's only 32 inches square and 6 foot tall. So if it's me riding in there, it's me riding in there with very little supplies. And at the same time, although I trust it, to do the job that it needs to do with carrying my bees up and down, I'm not exactly thrilled with using a homemade elevator by myself. Although I've done it a couple of times just to say I did, but I don't think I want to make that my sole means of transport up and down to the roof. I trust the ladders because that can't fall out of the sky like like my homemade elevator could. But rooftop, I love it. I love the rooftop apiaries. Really cool. Mine's pretty cool. Hey, Ange, how are you? Um, Rooftop apiaries are really neat. There's some really cool ones. I know in Philadelphia here we have quite a few city beekeepers. There's some on a couple of hotels, and you know it's great. Good for them. Although I don't know that I know I talked to the guy that had the bees on the roof of the hotel, and they were up there pretty good. They were like, I think they were above 15 stories, and I know he said they struggled sometimes with putting honey away, but I think that's a bit extreme. I think that's a bit high for that. And downtown, where I'm at, I'm in the city, but I'm still in a neighborhood. I'm not in a downtown skyscraper scenario. Yeah, Chad, that's a drag, man. When you can't be near your bees if they got to be an hour away. God, that's brutal. Um, for me, in my goals, there's no way that would work for me. Um, and that it really is a drag. Um, if you can keep them, the closer the better, for sure. Because I know Bruce is another guy, but I'd like to recommend that people just sit at the front of your colony and watch them. Watch the bees come in and out. You learn so much just from that. Seeing what they're bringing in, when they're bringing it in, when they're doing their orientation flights. What what it looks like to see guarding. What robbing looks like. Because all those things may look the same if you're not used to seeing it. But when you see robbing for the first time, after you've watched your bees steadily, you know what robbing is. It's not the same as just an active, busy colony or even orientation flights. It is not the same. And, something that's simple just by sitting out there and looking at them, to me, that's a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun. And you learn so much. David Blag, what lure do you use for swarm trapping? Um, I was gifted Swarm Commander. Someone got it for me. I think my mom got me. My mom got me like a stocking and a Christmas beekeeping stocking with, some of the silly things I probably would never use, but she did get me Swarm Commander, and I used that and felt that worked just fine. Um, Plenty of people use lemongrass oil and other combinations. In my opinion, the smell of the box is the biggest thing. I rub the inside down with beeswax and some slag from rendering wax and old comb. My swarm trap setup is only 5 frames in the box. It's 5 frames wide, but 10 frames deep. And there's only 5 frames. So it's a lot of space in there. I really believe in the cavity, that they're looking for space. They're looking for a cavity. So I put 5 frames in, 4 empties, 1 drawn, just an old drawn brood comb. Rub the box down with the beeswax, and then the spritz of Swarm Commander. Now, what I found worked even better than Swarm Commander was when I left the bees in the trap for a few weeks. Uh, let them get some propolis build up in there. Let them get the bee smell just going in. Um, them just living in it gives it all the bait that it really needs. And then, Swarm Commander or something like that's just auxiliary. So if you're just getting started, a swarm lure is certainly beneficial and recommended. And there's so many. Again, Swarm Commander is a product you can buy. It has great success, but there's a million ways to make swarm lure. People make it all the time, and usually it's pretty easy to get a hold of. And lemongrass oil is the old standby, and plenty of people just use that and have great success. So for me, I like the smelly box. I like the box that smell like bees, and those ones always hit. But that involves leaving them in there, and you got to make sure that you get in there at some point and remove and manage those frames, because they'll start to draw off the bottom of them. I actually have a survivor in a swarm trap now that's they've built off the bottom of the frames, but they're going to continue this year, so I got to get them in a new location. And part of me is just saying, just leave them be, leave them on the fence, leave them in that half-inch swarm trap box, let them fill it out and do whatever they're going to do. Because that was when I read it on the thermal imager in November, December, it looked like a baseball, just a red baseball. And then February, it looked like a softball. And then March, it was like a football. So those bees went through winter, and we had a pretty tough winter here. A lot of cold, a lot of snow. Those bees went through winter in a thin box with a small number of bees, and they made it. So part of me wants to get them out of there and put them in another box, and another part of me wants to just leave them be, leave them alone, let them do what they're going to do, and see what happens. Catch swarms off them later. Sorry, I'm getting thirsty. It's Friday night. I don't know what you guys do on Friday night, but I like to drink beer. Thanks all for watching. I appreciate it. First one, maybe the next one I'll actually schedule. But I was just sitting here talking to myself and figured I would talk to myself into a camera and get maybe a little bit of quirky. That's funny. Thanks, Usner, Nicholas. They actually used to call my grandfather Quirky. Quirk. Um, the count in PA. What do you mean? What's the count? Survivors? Right now, I'm at somewhere about 40, I believe. 40 out of 60. Something like 66%, I guess, if you're doing percentages. So not bad, not bad. Some surprises, some I thought were, going to make it, didn't. Others that I thought weren't, did. So, yeah, it was good. It was a good year. All my bees, in selling my nukes, I'm getting a lot of questions like, oh, what are your bees genetics? Are they Italians? Are they Russian? Saskatraz? I said, they're good old fashioned Pennsylvania mutts, man. They came out of buildings and walls and trees and all kind of places. I have no idea what they are. At this point, they're just good old fashioned PA mutts. And they seem to be doing just fine that way. And local bees, always want local bees if you can get them for free. I like getting paid to get them personally. I love doing cutout work. As I said earlier, it financed all of my beekeeping expenses last year, which was great. And I'm hoping it does the same thing again. I'm looking at, I would like to upgrade in my, keep upgrading my equipment. Like I would love to get an uncapper. There are a couple $1,000 that I just don't have to throw a couple $1,000 at. But, I get into doing a few nice cutouts and I'm getting an uncapper. That's already planned. That money's set aside for beekeeping, um, to make my life easier doing it. That's the whole premise. So I can have more fun. These machines, that's what their intention is, to save you the work, save you the time, give you that time back to go sit beer and drink beer and stare at your bees, and just enjoy yourself. Thank you, Timothy. I appreciate that. Yeah, I was looking at doing more of these streams. I can certainly do some talking once I get started. Um, and maybe bring on some guests, from like some of my other guys like Bruce and Castle Hives and all that, and 18 Bees. These guys are guys that I follow. I try to, I don't watch a whole lot of beekeeping videos. I like this more than most of them. Couple of them that I like. I like Ian Stepler up in Canada, just because I really appreciate his work ethic and his planning. He's a very intelligent man, very hardworking man, and he's a guy with a plan. That's for sure. So if you're looking for good inspiration as in those regards, he's a great resource. I really enjoy his videos because his being a guy like me who's worked in construction and has done appreciates tools and strategies of uh, success. He's got it going on. He's good. I like his videos. Yeah, you got to use that, Nick. There's no sense, like I was saying earlier, even as a small beekeeper selling your honey, you know, even if you're buying bees every year, which I never suggest, but if that's what you do, why would you not sell that honey? Make that money back. You sell 10, 15, sell 15 jars of honey and make that money for your packaged bees next year. Why put it out of pocket? The bees are going to pay for themselves. And honestly, that's one thing that I could see why people don't care if their bees die. You can always get more bees. You could always buy bees. If you really want bees, you go buy them. Go buy a package from Georgia. you know, if you really want to, because like I said, selling that honey, you'll get the money back. It won't cost you anything extra out of pocket. I don't recommend that. I mean, I try to get everybody to get some sustainability out of their beekeeping and their apiary, but forgive my dogs; they sometimes get a bit noisy. Yeah, swarms. This year, I don't think I'm even going to do. It's a bottle of the King of Beers, Bruce. I don't know if I'm allowed to do product placement. Um, yeah, swarms. Yeah, swarm trapping. I don't know that I'm going to do much swarm trapping this year. I set them out last year at a few places, had success. But as for, I don't think I have to go out and get any more bees from strange places anymore. I'm hoping that the cutouts continue to happen and I get some good ones. I have gotten some great cutouts from bees that I know were, untouched, unmanaged for years, and they did really well, always survived, and I was able to remove those bees, and most of those bees have done real well for me. Um, I think almost all my cutout bees are still alive. I might have lost a couple, but I am keeping an eye on that just as anecdotal evidence for myself and for anybody else that might be out there curious about, you know, feral bees, if we want to call them that, wild bees, bees that are unmanaged. I like to say unmanaged bees. Um, my favorite hive style. uh, I like. Well, I've only ever worked with Langs. Um, to me, it's just again the standardized equipment. It's the easiest to get a hold of. It's the easiest to work with. It's what all the machines are made for, at least the Lang style frames. So the commercial side of my beekeeping, I stick with what everybody uses. It works. It works well. Um, and I don't see any reason to do anything outrageous or new. Now, that being said, I love to build custom hives, and unfortunately, I didn't get to build one yet this year, but I have one in the works. I got parts for. Um, like my road barrel hive is just, like I said, completely impractical, but a blast. So thrilled to watch. I got to watch the swarm move into it. I'm hoping to watch the swarm move out of it this year and catch it and let that thing just continue like a log hive would. I built some other thick walled, like lay-in style frames, real deep frames that are, 2+ inches thick, solid hardwood. Again, that they're not practical. They're a pain in the ass to open, and I don't even want to open them this year. And just let them be wild, let them be swarm producers, and get me some and keep those good overwintered queens too. I want to keep them in my yard. I don't know that an uncapper, well, an uncapper might do foundationless, but it's going to have to be old wax. The new wax will get just shredded. If they're old wax frames, I think an uncapper might handle that, but that's not something that I'm going to take a chance on personally. If I have, and I do have foundationless honey frames, usually with those, I just spread them around when I need to, or put them out. If the colony dies, I'll just put them out and let them rob it out. Uh, or cut the comb honey and give that away, because I do have people that enjoy the comb honey, and I'll give that stuff away. Um, I don't know. As far as uncapping equipment, I haven't researched what I'm looking to purchase next year. Um, Something certainly mechanical, whether it's automatic, or powered. I don't know. Um, Still, I got time to worry about that. I can still uncap by hand. And now that I got my kid working for me, I can put him to work uncapping. So, so I don't have to do it. But that machine is in my future. Uh, I hope. I hope that's what I'm looking for next, uh, as the next piece of equipment to buy. then maybe bottling down the line, bottling equipment. All that stuff is, it's expensive. It's good equipment. It lasts, I got a Maxant, my 20 frame Maxant extractor. It's the one everybody uses. If you're going to get one, that's the one everybody says get one. And, I got it and I have zero complaints about it. Does what it's supposed to do. And, I'm happy with it. So I'll probably continue to look along their product line and see what works best for me at the time and what's agreeable to my budget. Hopefully like I said, the swarms or the cutout work is strong this year. And I did set up a website as per my advice from my buddy Bruce, my mentor Bruce, Mr. Swarmstead Rodriguez. And that's seen some action and I've been getting some hits on there. So hopefully everything goes smoothly with that and we get a bunch of them done this year. I love the work too. It's fun for me. I do construction work, but cutting the bees out and seeing how they live in different places, it's really, really amazing. That's why I don't go crazy about management in the boxes, and treatments and overthinking, taking boxes and flipping them up from the bottom to the top. And it's like, God, who's got the energy for all this nonsense, to me, I don't know that it's necessary. Maybe it is. For me, it's not necessary. I don't see any reason to do it. Plus, I use solid bottom boards, so I couldn't flip them even if I wanted to. Again, I like to leave that brood nest alone as much as possible. Let the bees do their thing. Seems to work. Keeps them healthier, more propolis build up, better defense against hive beetles and wax moths. All those things that they do that we remove, like especially propolis buildup, which I know sometimes makes management difficult pulling frames, but that's serving a purpose in there. It's doing a job for them. I will collect propolis from dead outs, but I don't generally take it from anything that's alive and kicking. They need it. They need it more than we do. Yeah, we'll see about coming up with something new. A new hive style. I don't know that it's necessary. I could think maybe a rethinking of what we already have, like just insulated boxes is probably a good idea. Insulated lids are a good idea. All, environmental management inside the box to me, as I think is probably the most important thing, and that doesn't require anything fancy. So I don't see myself creating anything new. Who knows? Maybe one day I'll have a stroke of genius, but I think Langstroth was on the money when he created his system, because of its practicality, and it's of course been altered a bit since he created it. But finding bee space was the breakthrough in that. And you see, here we are, however long later, it's still all working. Good night, Bruce. Cutouts, David Blag. Do cutouts require a license? Not that I know of. If you're, well, you don't need a license. Technically, you're supposed to register, at least here in PA, you're supposed to register your hives. But I am a licensed beekeeper because I'm a commercial beekeeper. Just by the number of colonies that I have makes me a commercial beekeeper. I am that. I am a commercial beekeeper, but you want to be careful if you're going to do cutouts, because there is always risk. If you're doing work on somebody's home and you can't do the work properly and they end up with a roof leak or leaking in a window or something, then I would suggest don't do it. I'm 20 years into construction. I work in home remodeling all the time. I've worked inside, outside, from top to bottom. I got a very good general knowledge of construction, so I don't have any reservations about doing cutout work. Now that being said, I do carry a liability insurance just for my own safety because I am working on ladders. I am working on scaffolding. That is more so for my protection than anybody else's. I also, when I do cutout work, I try to do my very best to not open myself up to more problems. Like as far as roofing, cutting open a roof. I will not cut open a roof unless I absolutely 100% have to. If I can access it from inside, I'll access it from inside because I don't want to be responsible for a leaky roof. Because you can get on the hook for something like that, and people will not leave you alone for years. For years, every roof leak that they ever have ever again will be your fault, unfortunately. So I try to avoid all of those kind of potentially messy uh, situations. Roofs are probably the thing I think about the most in that scenario because roof leak's a roof leak. The house gets wet, you got problems. So I avoid that. So I would, don't think you have to be licensed. Some people are. I know quite a few guys that are in construction or contractors like me who do a boatload of cutout work all summer, spring and summer, and then go back inside and do construction kitchens and bathrooms and things like that on the inside. They just happen to be licensed contractors already and beekeepers. And that's to me the responsible way to do it. If you're gonna do it, you better have the knowledge, you better have the tools and equipment, and to know how to put it back together once you remove the bees, so that way the client is satisfied. I feel the same way about harvesting pollen. Get into the hive, then it's taken away from them. Have to set that hive back even in a flow. Yeah, I don't take any pollen. I know there's plenty of guys in places where pollen is a big product. Not so much for me. It's one other thing that again requires other equipment and another process and processing. So I don't deal with pollen, just honey. Um, but I don't over harvest. When I keep my bees, like I said, I keep them in 5 frame deep and a 5 frame medium super. There's always a 5 frame medium super of honey on it. It's never below that. Anything I harvest is from there up. And usually, generally speaking, when they get pumping in the spring, they move the brood chamber up into those first 5 medium frames also. So I'm not pulling honey from the second, usually at very least the third or the fourth. But I try not to go over 3 just for the height. Just I run out of room on my ratchet straps to keep them down tied to the pallets on the roof. This is my dog Inigo, one of my dogs. He's a blue heeler Norwegian elkhound mix. He's usually very, very noisy. I'm surprised he let me get through this whole hour without barking. Well, I think that's going to be it for my trial run of a live feed. I was thinking about doing this on Fridays. Fridays is one of my nights that I don't have anything to do. I'm too old to go out to bars, and I never really cared for it anyway. I just drink here. And generally speaking, I don't do anything on Fridays anyway. So maybe I'll look at making this. Yeah, Nick, you're absolutely right. Being meticulous in the deconstruction, and that's a great word, and I use it all the time. Deconstruction saves you all the time in the world. Knowing where to make your cuts, how to make the cuts, so that way putting it back together is putting it back together neatly and time effectively is also very, very good. And you're absolutely right. It does build a reputation. But thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate you watching. Enjoy your weekend. I know we're all going to get real busy real soon, at least most of us here in the States. I'm in the Northeast, so our spring is just beginning, and this First week of April looks like to be the first week of actual spring, 40s at night, 60s in the day. So we'll be doing some beekeeping. Thanks a lot for watching as always, guys. We'll see you next time.